Hi guys.
Yes.
Apologies for that. I don't know what was wrong. I couldn't unmute. I was just dead, and then things happened. Anyway, so I'm so excited to join this Tech Lead series with Developer Circles Nairobi. My name is Allan Gogo, as you can see on the introduction there. I am the lead software engineer at Asante Financial Services Group, which is a fintech based in Nairobi, Kenya, with subsidiaries in Uganda, Tanzania, Nigeria, and Dubai. So I guess that's a quick one about me. I tend to think of myself as a full stack developer, so I'm developing both front end, back end, and also with a couple of mobile applications on the side. So I think because of time, we'll just move on to the next slide.
Yes. So the first question is, what is fintech? So I think you can start with that before you come to how is it different from banks. Yes.
All right. So as the name itself suggests, fintech. So this is like a merger of two different diverse fields. So whereby we have finance and technology coming to form one specific entity, so which we are all calling fintech at the moment. So the definition of fintech, according to me, is the automation of financial processes to enable those people who are unbanked and also those people who are banked to access financial services either through a mobile app or, through other technologies such as USSD, SMS, or any other technological front, not just the traditional banking hall kind of model.
Yes. Thank you so much. So how is fintech different from banks?
Okay, fintech is quite different from banks in that we can see that for most people who are delving into the fintech space do not even have physical space. If I was to ask you a question, do you know any lender on these apps where do you know their branches? Most people will say they don't know their branches. So you can see that it's different from banks in that as it targets both the banked and unbanked, they do not have physical locations like brick and mortar buildings. And then also you can see that fintech space in Kenya, I'm going to speak from a Kenyan perspective because that's where mostly I play my trade. You can see that it's not regulated by the CBK, and you can see there's a lot of hullabaloo going around that people want CBK to regulate fintech and all that. But let's see what they decide. But most of these things are self-regulating, whereby you find everybody is building their own tech and making their own decisioning platforms and running with it. Then you can also see that fintech employs the use of algorithms, diverse algorithms. Again, as I said, you'll find that everybody who is in the fintech space is building their own algorithm to decide the creditworthiness or to decide how am I going to assist this person access financial services. So I think that is what I would say. That's the difference between banks and fintech.
Okay, sure. It's a good answer. Yes, so we can move on to the next slide, Lynn. And the next question is, what does your day look like as the lead software engineer at Asante? Yes.
I think you jumped to one. When you go back to the previous slide.
Sure. Oh, sorry. it's the question about, is it a merger or competition, right?
Yes. So
Yes.
I would say it's more of both.
Yes.
But you'll find that we are leaning towards a competition to banks. However, we can see that the traditional banks are also coming into the fintech space, whereby they're also improving their tech, improving their systems. So I would say it's more of a competition and also a bit of a merger. So as you can see, all the traditional banking solutions are being automated right now. You can access you can apply for a loan, you can apply for any financial, what do I call it? You see, any financial facility that you want, say you want to check out your balance, you don't have to go to the bank as our parents did or our grandparents did. So you can see that most of these services are more accessible via either mobile or other channels. And also there's a lot of innovation in fintech. So I would say it's a little bit of both, but if you don't compete, you're going to die. So as time flows, you'll see that most banks are becoming more fintech savvy, and so merging with the other fintech organizations.
Sure. So can we proceed to the next question about what does your day look like as the lead software engineer? I'm really excited to hear about that.
Okay, so at Asante, as the lead software engineer, I am responsible for the tech in terms of all client-facing tech and all employee-facing tech. I'm responsible for that. So on a day-to-day basis, when I get into the office in the morning, I'll have to do just a quick check on my systems to see, like, did my cron jobs run? Is everything working perfectly? Are there any issues raised? Are there any tickets that have been raised that are software or tech related? So if there are those ones, then you have to solve them before 9 in the morning, because we all know that Kenyans take 9 in the morning seriously. So if you tell someone, come to my office tomorrow, they're definitely going to show up at 9 in the morning. So first thing that I do is solve tickets and just see if there are any other things that I can delegate to people around me, people in my department. And then the next thing that I do is catch up with my team. So we do a quick stand-up, just see where everybody's at in terms of mental, emotional, also physical. Are we ready for the day? What are you working on? Do you have any blockers? If you have any blockers, how can we assist you just to unblock yourself? And then after that, definitely I take some time out on my own, just plan my day, just look at what I have on my in tray. Then break it down into bits. I love modular programming, so I just don't go and just develop a whole system in a day. So just prefer to develop modules as we go. So that has to be planned. So after that, definitely maybe if there are a few meetings here and there, I'm really beginning to hate meetings as a person, because they take away a lot of time that you could spend coding. Then after that, I'll find myself spending 6 to 7 hours just working on new solutions and improving the existing solutions. So most of my time, I work from the office, but I also work remote. So when I'm working from the office, you'll find that's when I have the physical meetings, but COVID happened, so we are all working remote. So when I'm working remote, I'll work from either the whole afternoon. This will go all the way late, maybe up to around midnight. And then I'll take my leave at around midnight or 1 a.m. Then the next day starts at around 9 in the morning for me.
Okay. So I think that's a pretty tight schedule. So I think we can proceed on to the next question, which is, What is that one experience that has stuck with you while working in the fintech industry? Yes.
There are a couple of interesting experiences, but I think the most important one, the one that stands out for me is with the company that I work for right now. So when I joined them, they had this idea and this vision of enabling merchants access quick and reliable and cheap credit so that they can build their businesses. So there was a lot of there's a lot of discomfort amongst the other lenders in the same space, because they're saying, why are you guys giving people credit at a cheaper rate as opposed to us? Because you can see the people in this space who lend at around 20%, 29%, 30% for 30 days. But on our end, the CEO of the company just had a different vision. And that kind of stuck with me, because he put people before profit. And we can see that in the current world, most people are putting profit before people. So as a developer, as a person, this was one of the most interesting experiences, because I love to be ethical in my work. And I wouldn't develop anything for someone who's going to rip off people. You know, if you want to develop maybe a loan lending platform, and then you're charging people around 30%, 40%, 50% for maybe around 30, 40 days, I wouldn't touch that with a broom. I wouldn't. So this was one of the things that sold me to the current company, because before here I was also working with another fintech. But when this company approached me and told me, like, this is the vision and we want you to come and assist us implement this, I didn't think twice about it. So I just took the opportunity and jumped at it.
Sure, that's a really important point. Ethics in work and putting people before profit. I think I'll also go with that. And on to the next question. As fintech advances, how will trade automation, trade performance analytics, artificial intelligence, and machine learning impact trading professionals?
Okay, this is quite an interesting question, because we have people who are fearing for their jobs, people who are being told that if you do not improve your skill set, or if you do not learn a skill set, maybe AI, robotics, or coding or something of the sort, you're going to be phased out by AI and machine learning. But personally, I believe that all these technological advances should help us improve service delivery, product development, and everything else that we are working on right now. Because tech should not replace trading professionals. These trading professionals are the ones who are teaching this new tech. They're teaching all these systems to learn and to give us better decisioning. So I would say that personally, with the advancement of fintech, we'll come and see that people will come up with novel products. People will give us say decisioning platforms that are going to be like in an instant. It's just going to learn this person has done this person has this, their portfolio looks like this. So it's going to enable these trading professionals make better decisions and also give us new insights. So and I think when I was going through this question, I asked a friend of mine, like, what do you think about AI and machine learning in terms of the future? And he told me, think about air travel. As air travel has, revolutionized how people travel around the world, but it hasn't replaced the traditional methods. Let's say walking from A to point B, because if I want to go to the airport, I'll have to walk maybe to a cab or walk to my car and then drive to the airport, then take a plane. So it's still the same. Yeah, so it's not going to replace the existing platforms, but it's going to help us make better decisions and give us better insights into whatever field or trade you're in.
Sure, that's right. Yeah. So we can move on to the next question. What would we need to change in Africa's regulations to foster innovation and growth in financial services?
Okay, so this is a very interesting question, because based on where we are as a technologically as a country, as a continent, even globally, we can see that the young people are very, 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 they're coming up with all these innovations, coming up with all these interesting ideas. But you can find that the regulators at the top are not that, they're not that young, they're not buying into your vision. They don't understand what it is that you're throwing to them. Like the other day we had a conversation, was it in Parliament or in Senate, about blockchain, and people asking, what is blockchain? Is it going to help us? Do we need it? And you could see there was a lot of resentment from the old guard towards these new technologies. So I believe that we need to change the regulations and the regulators. We need to have young and innovative people, people who have ideas, people who can come up with new thoughts, new thought processes, and can tell these people, okay, maybe the old people who are there, okay, this is where you were 5, 6, 7 years ago. This is where we are right now, and this is where we are headed. So as much as these legacy systems are still there, we need to look at ways of incorporating new technologies, new ideas, but that cannot happen if the regulators themselves are averse to change. And the only way to drive this is to at least have or incorporate young people in these boards, in these companies, as directors, as board members, people who can come up with fresh ideas. So personally, I think to foster innovation and growth in financial services, we need to change the regulators who are there currently, so that they can see where we as the young people are heading, or where we want to head.
Sure, that's a really important point. Changing both the regulators and regulations already in place. So on to the next one. What is the future of fintech in Africa, especially with the barriers to financial inclusion through traditional banking and the central bank?
Okay, so when looking at the future of fintech in Africa, we have to look at all the emerging technologies and how they're being adopted by the different players in these industries. So we have the previous question mentioned AI, blockchain. So are these technologies being adopted by the players in this industry? And the answer to that is yes. So we'll see that moving forward in the future, fintech is going to drive any given business model. When anyone is coming up with a business model, they're going to think about, how can I incorporate technology and finance into one thing? And let's say, for example, if we were to take an example of blockchain, we all know where we are at. I believe most people on the call are tech savvy. They all understand what's going on in terms of blockchain. And I personally believe that this new technology is going to, change everything. It's going to change how we store our data. It's going to change how we share the data amongst ourselves. It's also going to change how we make decisions based on this data. So I believe that all this traditional banking and the central bank they'll have to get with it. They'll have to come up with ways of understanding all these new technologies and then implementing them first in their own systems. Then after implementing them in their own systems, then they can open it up to all the other players. Like, okay, we have come up with this technology based on blockchain. Can you guys come up and test it out? Yeah, I think that's it on that question.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for your answer. On to the next question. What new feature will the availability of and access to financial data unlock?
Okay. All right. That's a very heavy question, eh?
Yes.
Yeah. So I believe we'll have, as I said earlier, we'll see people making better decisions. Let's say, for example, if I wanted to take your credit score, for example, if I wanted to decide how much as a person, how much you qualify for as a loan, or let's say your business, how much can we invest in your business? With all these things at our fingertips, we are going to see that people are going to make better decisions faster. The time taken to make a decision is going to be shorter. And then also we'll see that there'll be something called, let's say, I don't know how I'm going to call it, consumer intelligence or customer intelligence. So people will be looking at you from different angles. Like, okay, so you want access to this, but your data says something different, And then also, when we look about financial institutions, are financial institutions ready for it? I believe with the current crop of technological people that we have there, with all of you also on the call coming up, you have all these new ideas, brilliant people, and most financial institutions are looking for this type of talent. So this tells us that most of these institutions are ready for this, and they're making ways, and they're making headway into fintech space. They're also just trying to ensure that they're not caught napping by their competition. As I said earlier, if you're not competing, then you're going to die in a few minutes, in a few years. So you can see that most of the banks that have fallen were not, they were not improving their technology. They were not able to see where risk was. All these fraud issues were taking place because they did not improve their tech. So I believe the financial institutions are ready for it. So they're all trying to invest. They're all buying all this fancy stuff and getting bright and talented individuals to run their technology and also to drive their new agenda. Then when we talk about user privacy, everybody has the, how will I call it? Everybody has the fear of their data being hived off. Let's say Kenya, I can see that there's a lot of that. But then again, do you all read, the terms and conditions of all these players in this? Someone will put a clause inside there and says our data will be shared with people in San Francisco, and you just say accept. And then after a few months, you can say, we don't want so and so in this industry because our data is in another country. So I believe user privacy is a major concern amongst the customers and also amongst the players. But I can see that most players are making it more transparent to their customers, telling them this is what we are going to do with your data. We are not going to share this data with other people, but this is what we are going to use it for. So as a user, I believe that you guys should be able to read, you should read the terms and conditions of any product, any fintech product, any fintech that you may access. You should read the terms and conditions, read the contract, understand what it says about your data so that you don't come and say later that I did not consent to this, but when you clicked accept, you consented to that. So.
Yes, sure. That's a really important piece of advice for anyone about checking the terms and conditions and reading the contracts. Yeah, it's very important. So I think we can move on to the next question, which is according to experience. I'm sure from your profile, I saw that you are a mentor. So which way do you think is the fastest, most efficient and effective way to learn software development?
Okay, so I would say the quickest way and efficient and effective way to learn software development is by doing. There's something that me, my team, and a couple of other guys, maybe guys who are on the call, maybe if you were there during when iHub was starting, there was something that we used to call, what was the name of this? It was called Tutorial Purgatory, whereby you'll find someone wants to learn Android development, but then they'll come and be stuck on a tutorial for a whole day. They're just listening to the video, watching the video, but they're not doing anything. They're being told, okay, this is how you create a Hello World application on Android. And they're told, okay, so you can use a fragment, you can use an activity, but they're not doing. So that's day one. Day two, you come and ask them, so what did you do yesterday? Oh, I learned about Hello World in Android. Okay, so did you implement it? No, I did not finish the tutorial. But the tutorial may be an hour long. And in an hour, I believe, by the time the tutorial ends at the end of that 1 hour, you should also have built the same thing on your machine. So for my mentees who are also on the call, I usually tell them that you learn by doing. So just move away from watching and reading a lot of tutorials and start implementing. The most effective way to learn is by doing, and it's by challenging yourself to build a system using any language that you may decide to do. If you feel like, let's say for right now, we have all these fancy languages, React, everyone is throwing them around, React, Angular, Node, Vue, but you ask someone, so which one do you want to learn? And you find someone wants to learn all of them. And I tell them, just pick one, build something with it, learn the syntax, learn the language, and then it's all the same for all these other languages. So I think that's it for my answer. I'll tell them, everybody who's on the call, if you want to learn, the fastest, most efficient and effective way to learn is by getting your hands dirty. Just knuckle down, code, even as you're watching those tutorials, do as the person is doing, so that by the end of that 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, however long the tutorial is, you also have been able to do it on your machine and you can replicate it elsewhere.
Yes, that's a very profound message. And to reiterate, someone else said that you can only become a builder by building.
Exactly.
So on to the next question. So what would you advise people starting on their development journey with the current technology which is rapidly changing?
I think this is also interrelated to the previous question. So anybody who comes to me and they tell me that, I want to learn how to code, or I'm a beginner, I'm a new developer, how do I go about this? And what I tell them is you have to commit, first of all. You cannot take this journey if you do not commit to the process. So commit to the journey and then use what works for you. If Java works for you, if you're able to learn Java quickly, as opposed to these other languages, if you find them confusing, if you find the architecture of this language different, just use what works for you, and then also have a mentor, someone who will guide you, someone who will look at your code and tell you, okay, so here you did this and this, but you can do it this way. You can reduce the time complexity of your code by maybe doing this instead of implementing this kind of algorithm, use this. So with the current technology and the pace that it's changing at, I believe anyone who's starting this development journey just needs to commit, pick a tool or a technology that works for you. Because as I said, all these languages at the end of the day, in the backend, they're the same. The logic is the same. If you're going to use object-oriented programming, it is the same for all languages. So just commit to the journey, get a mentor, and use whatever technology that you're comfortable with, and whatever works for you. If it's Angular that works for you, stick to Angular, build all your, exhaust it. Then figure out, okay, fine, I've done all that I can with Angular, let me do React, or let me do Vue or something. Yeah. Harrison, are you there?
Oh, sorry. I muted myself. So thank you so much for your answer to the previous question. So on to the next one. What advice would you give yourself when you started your journey as a software engineer? The pretty...
When I started my journey into software development engineering, number one, I didn't have a mentor. I was flying blind, I will just wake up in the morning and say, okay, today I want to build an app. I want to build a mobile application. But I don't know, I don't know the intricacies behind it. So if I was to give myself advice when I was starting, I would tell myself, number one, get a mentor, get someone who look over your code and tell you, okay, this is what you're doing, but you can do this, or this is faster if you do it this way. And then also I will tell my younger self not to beat myself up so much. If it does not work, there's always someone else who knows why it's not working. So just ask. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid to reach out to someone. So, like, for example, right now we have amazing Google developer experts in Kenya. I think we have an Android GDE. So, but they're not, they don't have people reaching out to them and asking them questions, So even to the young developers on the call, if you see someone out there who's working in the same industry as you, who is doing things that you want to do, reach out to them. No man is an island, and what's the worst that they can tell you? It's no. And if they tell you no, there's always another person who will tell you, okay, fine, I'll assist you. So definitely reach out to other senior engineers, people who are senior than you, and don't spend a lot of time debugging when you can just ask someone, okay, what's going on here? I did this, why is it not working? Instead of spending so much time alone, even though you'll figure it out, but let's say you spend 10 hours figuring out a bug that if you came to Allan, he will help you maybe in like an hour, and then the other 9 hours, you will do something different. So that was one of my mistakes when I was starting out. I preferred to do everything alone. And then I met someone along the way who told me, you know what? You can do better if you do this, if you ask questions, if you ask, why is this not working? Or why is this working? Why is it not working if I do it this way? And I believe that has led me to this point in time. And it's also going to lead me to a different point in time in the future.
Sure. That's a really important piece of advice about having a mentor and code reviews. I think I'm going to get started on that. Code reviews. Yes. So on to the next question. So what is that one project that you worked on that stretched your limits as a software engineer?
Okay, this has to be the M-Pesa integration between my system and the Safaricom systems. Back when the Daraja API was being launched, most developers dived into it, and we did not even learn. We just wanted to implement. We told clients, okay, I can integrate your systems with Safaricom M-Pesa. And the Daraja API was quite, it was quite exhaustive. It was quite extensive. So it took me quite some time to implement that solution. And I believe if I'd taken time and read the documentation, I would have coded that maybe in half the time that I coded it in, because I did it in almost 6 months. And people who read the documentation came and they were the ones who were solving my bugs and telling me, this is where you go wrong. The documentation says do this. So that project really stretched my limits, because you're trying to learn as you go. You're learning, you're coding, and you're deploying, which was very, very stressful. So, but it taught me very, very important lessons in life, and also as a developer. And I think this is something that I tell my mentees when they come to me and they have an issue. Yes, we'll go through the problem together, but then I'll still refer them to the documentation of whatever API it is that they're working with.
Sure. I am really, really much excited on your answer on that. I remember I've recently completed my studies in World Quant, doing data science and machine learning. And in almost every lecture we did, one of the things we used to do is reading documentation. Oh. And I think that's a good reminder to everyone, reading documentation. So on to the next one.
Yeah.
Where do you think developers make mistakes, especially when handling clients?
Okay. So I think I've seen this with many developers, also the ones that we tend to, I'm also going to speak from my perspective also as a developer. You'll find that most of the time we build according to the logic, but not according to the problem or the issue that the client wants to solve. You'll find that the client tells you, I want to go to point C, but as a developer, you decide, okay, you can first of all go to A. First, you start at A and go to B and then go to C, but the client really wants to go from point A to point C directly. So we find that most developers, they write code according to, the logic, and they don't really internalize or think about what the client really wants. And that's why you find we have so many applications built, or so many systems built, but the client does not use, like even say 30% or 40% of the capability of the system, because the system maybe does 10%, and that 10% is exactly 100% of what the client, wanted. Case in point, we had, I'm not going to mention names, but there's a company that launched a keyboard. And when they launched the keyboard, a keyboard application, they told us this keyboard can do a lot of things. It can transfer money, it can transfer what, it's a chatting mechanism. But as a person, what exactly are you looking for? You're looking for a keyboard. You're not looking for, a SIM toolkit in a keyboard. And so we tend to go overboard, and we tend to, yes, do a lot of crazy things. But at the end of the day, the client is always right. The client, if the client says, I just want this, just forget about the logic, forget about everything, just try and solve what issue the client has. Just don't be too fancy. Just don't don't try and show off. Just deliver what was required. And then also there's an issue whereby you find that most developers do not interact with the customers more. They don't come and ask the customer questions like, okay, fine, you want this? How are you going to work with it? How are you going to interact with it? Or I've built this. What do you think we should change? What do you think we should not? Most of us leave the work to maybe the product owners or project managers. So as a developer, if you do have a product owner or project manager, just try and tell them once in a while, okay, I want to face the client. I want to see what the client says about this. I want to have, how will I call it, first-hand experience from the client with the tool or with the solution that I built, because you're the one who coded it. But if you don't know how the client interacts with it, then you have. Let me say you are blind at some point. You have a blind spot. So you're relying on third parties to come and tell you, the client said that change this button and put it here. So, but why not ask the client, okay, so why do I change this button and put it here? Why don't you like it here? So as a developer, if you are more customer facing, or if you're more interactive with your customers, I believe we'll build better systems and will not spend a lot of time coding fancy stuff that the client is not using.
Sure, really, that's a good one. As you are speaking, I was thinking about test-driven development and following through the user stories and building out everything. What is in the user story, and not these nice to have features that most of the times we get carried away with. Yeah. So on to the next question. So how do you keep abreast with new tech?
I find myself interacting a lot with people in space. So as of now, my stack is Java, I also do a lot of PHP, and also I use a lot of MySQL on the databases. But there are a lot of new technologies that come up every single day. So I attend a lot of symposiums when I have time on weekends. I'm always on developer circles on Facebook, trying to see what is this person saying. I think you'll always find me in every single live video. I'll always be there, trying to see, trying to learn, trying to understand any new technology that people are building. Like a couple of weeks ago, someone was building stuff to do with AI. That was very interesting. I also read a lot. Whenever I'm on my commutes home, from home to work, I'm always reading, just trying to see what is the tech world saying, what's the new innovation today, how is it going to impact my work, how can I implement it in my work. Although I have to be honest on one thing, I am not big on new languages as they come. I tend to prefer a language that has been there for, like, let's say 2 or 3 years, language that has a proper community, it has proper documentation, something that you can learn, you can read and understand it. So I guess that answers your question. I read a lot. I attend a lot of tech-related events, DevCons. I remember this year I was supposed to have AndroidCon, but DroidCon, I don't know if it's going to happen, but hopefully it will. PyCon as well. I love what they're doing. Yeah, I love what Bize and all the people that PyCon are doing. So I try as much as possible to attend all these events. Any event that is done by a tech-related company, you'll always find me there. I'll always be quiet, listening, and just trying to learn. If I come to Nairobi Uni, C4D Lab, I'll always be there trying to understand what is it that you guys are building, how are you guys doing it, how are you going about it, how can I learn from you guys, how can I implement this. So I believe that also new developers can do that. You just don't have to stick to one thing. And also, as I said earlier, no person is an island. You have to reach out. You have to You have to go out there, and it's one of the most effective ways of keeping abreast with new tech, because if you come to iHub, you'll find someone working with a new technology that you don't know, but once you learn it, you find that you're doing amazing things with it.
Yeah, sure. That shows you really learn a lot, and I will try to follow up your steps. And on to the next session, which is the Ask Me Anything. Thank you so much for answering the previous questions. And now I'll invite Charlene to continue on with the AMA session.
So thank you, Allan, for the session. I believe you've given us an insight on both fintech and the most asked questions as for someone who's starting out, or most of us in campus. And on to the chat section, we had questions from the participants. So I'll be asking them and you'll give more insight on this. So the first one is, though you'd answered it, maybe you have more to add. For someone in programming, learning Python, how can you advise me? Is there any more you can add from what you'd answered before?
So we can see that Python is very, it's very interactive, and there are a lot of people diving into Python as their first language, because people are saying it's easier. I think the most easiest languages to learn compared to the others. So as I said earlier, just try and interact with the documentation, interact with the community, and then also learn by doing. If you want to build, say, a website or a web application, it's going to be a web application. You're going to build a web application and you want to use Python, just go ahead and do it. So we have several frameworks. Just pick one and decide, okay, fine, I'm going to build my web application using Django, for example. I'm going to see it through. So I'm going to read the documentation, understand it, see how it interacts with the backend, how the front end interacts with the backend, the databases as well, and then move on from there. If I hit a stumbling block, the Python community is large globally, and also I think in Kenya. So reach out to guys who've been in Python, who've been coding for a while in Python. They're everywhere. If you go to LinkedIn or if you go to Facebook, just write Python. I'm sure you'll find people who are interacting with it and doing amazing things with it. And then also don't be afraid to commit to it. If you hit a stumbling block, if you hit a blocker, reach out to someone. Don't spend 10 hours trying to figure out a bug when it can be solved in an hour or less. So just try and reach out to people and, of course, go through the documentation.
Yeah, I do agree, especially on the documentation, and the community is always there to help. On to the next one. How is the market for programmers, and how long does it take for one to be fit for the job?
The market for programmers is there. Just depends on your skill set. So if you decide, and I always tell people, just pick, just pick a direction and be fluent at it. Just if you want to do mobile apps, just decide, okay, I'm gonna do Android. Take it and run with it. Do iOS using Swift. Take it and run with it. Be fluent, be proficient, and then come to the market. The market we're always looking for developers to build amazing applications, both Android, iOS, because those are the two most used platforms. And then, I'm sorry, I didn't get the other question. Was the time?
Yes, how long does it take for one to be fit for the job?
I cannot put a finger on time. Time is better than you guys are in campus. I know amazing developers who are still in campus, and I think you can see that when you come to the market, maybe they are 22, 23, and then you'll find a developer who's 30, 31, 32, 33. the younger one is more proficient in a technology that the older one, says they are proficient in. So time is just but an illusion. Work on your skill set, improve your skill set, and I can assure you that you won't know. You'll just be shocked that, okay, today I'm being referred to as a senior developer. I'm 25 or I'm 26. This wasn't supposed to happen, So just don't worry about time. Just do you. The world will adjust.
True. On to the next one. What do you see? Oh, sorry. Your work seems to take much of your time. How do you balance work and social life?
I have quite a rigid schedule, but I try and work around it in terms of socials and work-life balance. So I am a cyclist. I belong to a cycling team called Team Velonitrous. We're based in Kikuyu, and we try and train as much, like over weekends, on Saturdays, on Sundays, and then also try and ensure that all riders in the team commute to work by bike and not just by car. So that gives you an idea of where you are as a person, because when you're commuting to work, you tend to think, or you get to work when you're fresher. Although there's that there's that trade-off of you won't be able to, let's say, catch up with the news or read or see something that's interesting online or read a book, but you'll find that you'll take maybe a shorter time to work and you'll get to work more fresher. And then also when you're going home, you leave work early, because say you're cycling home, definitely you're not going to cycle in the dark. So cycling has helped me maintain a work-life balance between everything that I do. But also I love sleeping a lot. So when I have a bug and it's not going away, and I can see that I've reached out to all my, all people in my circle, people that I consider senior developers than me, and it's not working, I'll take a breather. I'll take like an hour, just sleep, then wake up fresh and just get back to it. One of my mentors told me that most companies will replace you in a heartbeat. So if I was to fall off and die today, God forbid, touch wood, maybe my company will just put out an advert immediately, and then maybe tomorrow one of you guys will be seated in my seat. So I'm not going to kill myself with work. If it's working, sour. If it's not, we can always do it tomorrow. So that's usually my policy. If I haven't done it today, if I haven't finished, we can always try again tomorrow.
Yeah, that's true. It's very important. You've seen most top CEOs, they're replaced within the day, actually. So, yeah. Which tool or text editor do you use for web and app development? I believe you're in application development, or?
I'm in both. So for apps, depends if it's mobile apps and you want to do Android. So definitely it's going to be Android Studio, definitely. Because it's perfect for my work. But if it's anything else, Visual Studio Code, VS Code works perfectly for me. It's lightweight, it's fast, compilation time does not take, it's quite short. However, if I'm feeling lazy and I want some assistance, I'll definitely use one of the JetBrains, say PHP Storm. If I'm working with Python, we all know PyCharm is a tool to go for, but for me, it's either Android Studio or VS Code.
Mm-hmm. And similar to that, what are your favorite and least favorite technology products, and why?
Okay, this is quite a broad question. Technology products that I've built or technology products that have been built by other people. So I'm going to go with technology products that have been built by other people. So my favorite technology product is, and I'm going to get some stack for this, is Stack Overflow. I love Stack Overflow so much because it has an amazing an amazing community, and as a developer, if you do not interact with Stack Overflow, I will ask you very many questions. Why don't you go to Stack Overflow? So, and there's also a running joke amongst the community around that if Stack Overflow is closed today, most of us will go to the village and become farmers. So yes, it's one of my favorite technology products. My least technological product is, let me see, it's what? I don't think I have a least favorite, because every technological product that is out there solves something that I didn't know that I needed. So I'll say that I don't like social media, but then if it wasn't for social media, I wouldn't be here. So it's always a and again.
Yeah. For someone working in a different industry, how do they transition to the tech industry once they're done learning?
So a couple of weeks ago, just allow me to just give a backstory on this. A couple of weeks ago, I was interviewing for a developer, and the most interesting thing that we received was from a pilot. He was like, I'm a pilot, but I feel that I should have been a coder, so I'm working on becoming a coder. And he was good, So and it didn't limit him that he's a pilot, so he should only be in the skies, but he felt that he can also sit behind a laptop and bang out code. So the transition to tech is always, I tend to think it's, okay, of course you need to find speed bumps there, it's not going to be seamless, but if you reach out to the community, if you reach out to people in this industry and tell them like, hey, I am a doctor, but I'm looking to get into tech. Or I am a cleaner, but I'm looking to learn coding. Because I think also one of the most interesting stories that we've had this year was a cleaner who was working at one of the companies in Nairobi. He became, one of the developers in the same company. And people are like, what? How did that happen? So if you reach out to the right people, you learn the technology that you want to build upon, and you commit to the journey, the transition is always, I tend to think, close to seamless. Of course, there are going to be a few bumps and hitches there, but everybody experiences that. Even guys who are in campus, when they come out, they are bumped, and it's usually to tarmac for a while. If you don't have a good grip, or if you don't have something that you've built that you can sell, most people will tarmac, let's say, for a month or two before an opportunity comes to them. So if you're looking to transition from any other industry, just find a technological stack, learn it, be proficient, and then reach out to other people who are in the industry and tell them, okay, look, this is what I do, and this is what I've learned, and I believe I can do this with the knowledge that I've learned.
Yeah, and also from the communities, you have them offering scholarships, like from Facebook developer circles. There are biannual scholarships, and you might just check in the group, but we'll inform you once they're open. And they are inclusive of everyone.
Exactly.
So, yeah. On to the next question. How does freelancing work for programmers?
Freelancing is, I think for programmers, it's still the same as any other industry out there. So if you want to, basically for me, there are two fronts to it. There's my side hustles, like what I do for people who are not my employer. And also there's what I reach out to people and tell them like, hey, this is what I can do. So for example, I see a company saying we want a system built for this and this and this, and I have built such a similar system, or I can build such a similar system. So I reach out to the company and tell them this is what I can do. I don't wait for them to come and tell me like, okay, we've seen your profile, we've seen this is what you can do, or do you mind joining us? Also, we have various platforms which I think are there. We have this Stack Overflow, there are jobs there. We find most of my friends picking jobs from there, doing them maybe in like a month or two, and then getting paid for that. Also, there are a couple of other platforms, I think Upwork. You'll find most people reaching out there and perusing the jobs that are there. So freelancing for programmers is still the same as any other industry. You have to know your craft. You have to be proficient. You have to be efficient in whatever you do. Don't tell a client that you will deliver in 10 days and then you deliver in 16 or you deliver in 11, because most people will tell you, I said 10, but you're coming in 11. So it's still the same. I'm sure even in those other industries, say, let me see, content creators, still the same. You have to go to the platform that has these jobs and apply for them and prove that what you can do, attach your GitHub repo, attach everything of yours, show the client this is what I can do. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, the next slide is a bit normal, social. What 3 words will your colleagues use to describe you?
The one and only.
Okay.
Those are 4, eh? The one and only. So my name is I find most people who do not pronounce my name properly. They'll pronounce it as the people who will come and say Aaron, the people who will call me, Allan. No, but my name is Allan. So we shorten it at my place of work. So they call me GA. So most people, when they come and they introduce to me, most of the people will introduce to me as GA, the one and only. So, yeah, that's the word that they used to describe me a lot, the one and only.
Okay. I'll try to combine these next 2 questions, and they're based basically on the question you're asking on advice to developers. So, yeah. What is the pay on average for entry-level programmers, and which skill is the most lucrative among the... Okay. Yeah, I think you can answer the first one. What is the pay on average among entry-level programmers?
Okay, so it depends with the industry. So, but this is not linked to my company or any of the companies I've worked for, but based on discussions with other developers, other hiring managers, and also my experience when I was applying for these roles. So you'll find that the pay on average for entry-level programmers, I'm going to do this in Kenya shillings, but some people will do it in dollars. You'll find most people will offer you around 40,000 Kenya shillings.
I think we lost him.
Yeah, okay. In the meantime, I think Harrison can talk about our session for next week. Oh, he's back. Can just wait.
Yes.
Allan, are you able to unmute?
I'm sorry, I dropped off.
It's okay.
The universe telling me not to speak about developer pay. So yeah, you'll find that most companies in Kenya will charge, will pay entry-level developers maybe anything from around 40,000, and then this goes up as you level up, as you improve your skill set. You'll find that most companies will start paying you better. You'll start getting other bonuses as well for things that if you solve a problem, you get a bonus, or you get what are those things called? Allowance. Yes, you get an allowance. So, yeah.
Okay, and the next one is also kind of similar. Which skill is the most lucrative among the following: cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, web development, and mobile development?
Okay, so among a start, I will go for cybersecurity because everyone is quite paranoid about their data right now. So you find that people, professionals in the cybersecurity space, are quite well paid, and also they are in high demand. So you'll find most of them are not tied to one company. I think white hats are not tied to one company. You'll find that most of them are consultants, so they'll come do all tests on your platforms and tell you, okay, I was able to access your data using this this place. I was able to infiltrate your network using here. So just tighten it here, tighten it there. So amongst all that, cybersecurity currently is one of the most lucrative. However, artificial intelligence is hot on its heels, and then the others follow. So mobile development, web development, because we have a lot of people who are proficient in these two technologies, mobile and web. There's so many developers. If I throw a stone somewhere outside, I'm sure I'll hit a developer who's doing mobile or web.
I think most of these big questions are because on most times when you are dealing with freelancing, there's the question of how much should I charge? Maybe you should give advice on that.
Okay, so what I tell people who come to me with this question is how much should I charge? Number one, what is the workload? If you feel that the workload is gigantic, it's enormous, then break it down. How much do you charge per hour? If I gave you something that you can do in an hour, how much do you charge per hour? And then also you have to be careful not to price yourself out of a move, because I see people who come and tell me that I can build you a mobile application, but I'm going to charge you $1 million shillings for it. And I ask them, so why are you charging me $1 million shillings when I know that, the market rate for a mobile app is, say 500,000 or 300,000. So that way you've already priced yourself out of a move. So I tell most people who are freelancers, break it down into modules and then get your hourly rate, and then just don't give a specific figure. So if your hourly rate is, because most of these freelance gigs are paid in dollars. If your hourly rate is $10 per hour, tell the client my rate is between 7 and 12, or 8 and 12, or 8 and 15. So that way they can come down. They can either go up, because they're definitely not going to pay you $8. They're not going to go down. They'll always go a bit higher, and you'll find that you'll tend to be paid your regular hourly rate. Or in some cases, you'll be paid a bit higher. So if your hourly rate is $10 and then you come and tell me you charge between 8 and 15, I'll definitely tell you, okay, can we do 10? So you see, you're already you've already broken even. So you're charging 10, he's offered you 10. You can go higher. Tell them no, because I charge between 8 and 15, and this work is like this and like this. Let's do 12. And someone will come down and tell you, okay, let's do 11. And then you have to quote how many hours are you going to do the work for, how many days. So just try and understand the concept of your own hourly work rate, because you'll be paid proportional to the problems that you solve. So that's it.
Okay, we're almost done.
Yeah. What
advice will you give to a software developer who's seeking internship or entry-level work opportunities? Should they be generalist or specialist?
So if you're on entry level, I tell people just be a generalist, because you'll be told we are hiring for, let's say, an entry-level mobile developer. But then you go there, you'll find that the tech for mobile development is not yet built. So they'll tell you, okay, can you do the back end? Or can you do this front end for us as we wait for maybe the business teams to come up with the entire product? So just try and understand everything. And then as you move, as you scale up, specialize in one thing. So that also improves your pay. It improves your pay, and also it improves your marketability. So like those people who are cybersecurity specialists, they started as maybe Android developers or mobile developers. And then let's say they started as mobile developers, and then they transitioned to Android. They became good at Android, and then they started exploring the vulnerabilities around Android. And then they saw, okay, fine, I can do better as a cybersecurity expert in Android field. So yeah. So when you're starting out, just be a generalist, and then when you get into the field, specialize. So if you become, let's say if you start as an intern at my company, and you come in and I'm telling you, okay, do for me front end, do for me back end, do for me mobile, solve this, do for me a bit of DevOps. But then I come and see that you're good at DevOps as opposed to mobile and front end or back end. Then I'll tell you, okay, just specialize with DevOps. And that's why you'll see that most people in the DevOps scene are serious developers as well.
Sure. On to the final question because we are out of time.
Okay.
And as I hand over to Harrison, for more questions for those that may have, and for those that want you to be their mentor, as you said, you're a mentor, how do they get in touch with you?
So if I think one or two or three of my mentees, because I'm currently mentoring a group of 5. So you can reach out to me through Facebook, Allan Gogo. You can reach out to me through LinkedIn, Allan Gogo. And then also, I think those are the 2 main channels that I use for mentoring. My Twitter is just there. My Instagram as well is just there. So Facebook and LinkedIn, that at least gives me an idea of where you are, and then also we can have a solid conversation there. And if I think that you're serious about the journey, we can always kick it off. So for anybody looking to join my mentorship program, I do a lot of meetings with them on either Google Meets or Zoom, and try and understand where they are as a person, as a developer, any issues they're facing. Then also now we move to the code, any blockers that they have. And I think most of them will see that I'm quite strict when it comes to code reviews and code sharing. So you'll find we use a lot of Git. So if you're coming to me for mentorship, you have to be good at Git, or you have to be willing to learn Git. So Facebook, LinkedIn, Allan Gogo. That's with a